Fantasy football season is finally here. Drafts are getting underway, and there is no better time to dive in and make sure you know what to expect when you're on the clock. In this series, we're looking at mock drafts with a different strategy in every show. Today, we're testing out the dual running back approach. Does it still work in 2025? I'm Tom Strachan, writer and podcast host for Fantasy Pros. This is Fantasy Sanctuary, though, where we have a non-stop stream of fantasy football content with one simple goal: to help you win. We're going to use the Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard to mock draft. It's insanely customizable. You can sync your leagues to it and automatically copy your settings in. Then it'll adjust the rankings for that. You can choose which expert rankings and insights you see, including mine, which are part of the expert consensus rankings of over 100 people from across the industry. Last year, I finished number 2 overall in their sleeper competition, so I'm feeling good about things heading into 2025. With the Mock Draft Wizard, there's no waiting around for other people, nobody taking 6 kickers, nobody jumping out as soon as they've started and autoing the rest of their draft. Instead, we can mock against the Wizard and get feedback from top experts in our draft very quickly. So check out the link in the description below to start your own mock drafts over on Fantasy Pros right now. For this mock draft, we are going with a 2025 season draft, obviously. We'll go half PPR, snake, and we're going to pick from the 4th pick. I like the 4th pick for dual running back starts, and we'll talk about that more as we go. You see the roster setup. It's quite shallow, similar to most home leagues. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense, and 5 bench spots. Now, my preference is to play in leagues without defense and kickers, but I know a lot of you out there still have them, so let's use that for today. So at the start of this draft, we see Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb all sitting there because Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Bijan Robinson are all off the board. Now, the top running back choice, it really comes down to what you prefer. There are people out there worried about Saquon Barkley because of the massive amount of touches he had last year. There are people out there worried about Jahmyr Gibbs because of David Montgomery. Now, David Montgomery last year was on the field plenty when Jahmyr Gibbs was still playing at his ceiling, so I don't have concerns about that. I know lots of experts like Evan Silver and Ben Gretsch pushing Jahmyr Gibbs as their RB1 overall. I'm going to lean though to Saquon Barkley. I faded Saquon Barkley last year and it hurt me badly. I'm not willing to do the same again. Yes, he is going to have to continue to run very pure, but this dual running back build where we want to start with 2 running backs, I'm fine saying that we'll take the guy who was incredible last year. It's quite a heavy running back start for this draft, so by the time it comes back to us, if we're going to go dual running back and have 2 running backs back to back, then we're left with a choice of Bucky Irving or Chase Brown. Now, I don't want to get controversial out of the gate, but I think that Chase Brown is the better value running back here. Bucky Irving really didn't steal a huge volume of touches last year. His opportunity share was never above 60% really. Even from week 10 onwards, he only had 3 games where he had over 50% of the running back touches in Tampa Bay. It's a new offensive coordinator, so we don't know how he sees that split going. But meanwhile, Chase Brown, the only competition that he's got is Taj Brooks and Samaje Perine. I think Chase Brown is going to see a lot more pass catching work this year. So we start with those back-to-back running backs, Saquon Barkley and Chase Brown. Now we're in a position where we need to be thinking about how we build out a wide receiver room. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are both at the top of ADP, and it could be tempting to just lock them in, but then by the time that it comes back to us in round 4, it's going to be really difficult to get a good wide receiver as our wide receiver 1. So moving over to the wide receiver tab, Jackson Smith-Njigba, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams. I have concerns about Garrett Wilson with Justin Fields. I know they played together in college, but it's not enough for me to put faith in Justin Fields as a passer. T. Higgins, I'd be fine having T. Higgins and Chase Brown, 2 players from one of the offenses that's going to have to put up the most points because their defense is just terrible. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm completely fine taking him as my wide receiver 1. I think we saw a true breakout from him last year in his 2nd year. We're going to see limited volume this year with the Seahawks trending towards being more of a run-heavy team. But I think everything that they do will focus on Jackson Smith-Njigba in the passing game, and I think that he can still be plenty efficient. Particularly when you throw in, if they use him more and more on the ground, then when they use play action, those play action passes are going to be so valuable. So when it comes back around to us, we've had a few wide receivers go off, but it's been a mix of quarterbacks and running backs as well, so it's kind of helped us with the quality of the wide receivers that we get next. So our choice for the wide receiver 2, Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf. Now, there's a good chance at least one of those guys comes back around to us. So I'm going to swing for upside. We know that our wide receiver room isn't as impressive as some of these teams at the back end who started with Nico Collins, Drake London, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. Maybe not even as good as Amon-Ra and Garrett Wilson. But let's take Marvin Harrison. Now, yes, there are obvious concerns about Kyler Murray in the passing game, how they utilize Marvin Harrison there. But a year ago, Marvin Harrison was going at the back of round 1 in drafts. The idea that now we can get him into 4th, like, look, Jackson Smith-Njigba took a huge leap in his second year. Why can't we bet on Marvin Harrison taking a leap this year? So DK Metcalf does come back around to us, as does Cortland Sutton and Devonta Smith. I like most of these options here. DK Metcalf, again, might end up being in a run-heavy scheme, but the difference between DK Metcalf and the rest of the wide receivers on the Pittsburgh Steelers is enormous, and I think that he can truly separate, and we can be talking about a 30% target share for him. So after starting double running back, we've then gone wide receiver for 3 picks. We start 2 wide receivers plus a flex. So technically, we've started filling out our running back and our wide receiver and our flex position by this point in the draft. So if we need to, we can open things up a little bit more and be a bit more flexible. Right now, the top choices, quarterback and tight end, are TJ Hawkinson and Baker Mayfield. Neither of whom it feels like on this roster we're desperate for. So again, why not just lean back into the wide receiver position? Really make sure we've got as strong a build as possible when we know that this isn't going to be the strength of our team. So Calvin Ridley, the Titans' clear wide receiver 1, had some great reviews through training camp. Cam Ward seems to be doing very well, and I think that having that choice of Jackson Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison, DK Metcalf, and Calvin Ridley, it allows us to play the matchups each week, and I feel pretty good about that. Back on the clock, Baker Mayfield is still there, but look, there's plenty of teams who've taken a quarterback already, so I think we're going to get some values later, and I don't feel the need to bring Baker Mayfield up at this point. Jerry Jeudy, Rome Odunze, both have upside, but right now it doesn't necessarily feel like we need another wide receiver. So our choice kind of comes down to our RB3, Brian Robinson or Tyrone Tracy. Brian Robinson last year was really good, saw plenty of volume, but never really found his way into the end zone, so we never got much ceiling. But in half PPR, I'm quite tempted to take Brian Robinson and just say, you know, maybe we get positive touchdown regression this year and he becomes a more useful player. If it's not Brian Robinson, it's Tyrone Tracy, who seems to be the clear lead back in the Giants' backfield. Cam Scatterbo injured already. Tracy, we know, is going to see plenty of receiving volume, and even in half PPR, that's quite valuable. It's tough. This is really volume versus receiving work, and I'm going to lean into the receiving work for Tyrone Tracy. I mean, last year he was solid. Yes, the fumbles are a concern. Yes, Cam Scatterbo is a concern, but it's not like Brian Robinson has a clear backfield in Washington either. So now there are only 3 teams, including us, who do not have a quarterback. So I'm going to keep pushing the quarterback position for a little while longer. Wide receiver, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jaden Reed are all towards the top. All fun options. Running back, Travis Etienne, Zach Charbonnet, Tajay Spears, Cam Scatterbo. Not amazing. I don't think we need Travis Etienne for this team. We need Saquon Barkley and Chase Brown to be really legitimate, excellent running backs week to week. So there's no point forcing Travis Etienne and wish casting what he might be at this point in his career. At tight end, Travis Kelce, Evan Engram, David Njoku, Tucker Kraft. We can push that a little bit further before we need to worry about it. Quarterback, as we mentioned, we can push that because so many teams already have their quarterback situation sorted. So let's go back to wide receiver. Here, it kind of comes down to the 2 49ers wide receivers, Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. Now, Ricky Pearsall's been injured now. He was injured last year before he got shot. He seems to keep getting banged up, and that at a certain point is going to harm him. Juwan Jennings, we're betting on quite a breakout that we hadn't really seen much from him before last year's breakout. Without Brandon Ayuk healthy and with no Deebo Samuel, I think I'm okay saying that Juwan Jennings can be the Niners wide receiver 1 at the start of the season. When the draft comes back around, you can see it's all been running backs and wide receivers, which again plays into our hands perfectly because it keeps pushing these tight ends, keeps pushing these quarterbacks further and further down the draft. So now let's see, can we scoop up some nice value on a running back? Zach Charbonnet, Tajay Spears, Rashad White, all at the top of the board. The easiest click for me here is Zach Charbonnet. We already talked about it with JSN. The Seahawks are probably a team who want to run a little bit more. I really like Kenneth Walker at his cost, but what's to say Zach Charbonnet is not going to get some opportunities if Kenneth Walker misses time? We saw last year how good he could be in those situations. 3 defenses go off the board. That's not a tactic I'm ever going to employ. Defensive scoring in fantasy is so different to what we get out of really good defenses for the NFL anyway. And defensive play year to year is so regressed. It's so difficult to predict it, and it's so up and down that I don't feel like I ever want to reach on them. Now at quarterback, Kyler Murray keeps falling. Look, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but if we're going to say that Marvin Harrison could be good for us here and really have that second year breakout, then let's stack the 2 of them together and just put our eggs in the basket. And if it's not working out, we'll just drop Murray. So at the tight end position, it feels worthwhile taking a second just to look at this now. Every team, pretty much apart from the 12 spot and the 7 spot, have their tight end already. I'm okay here saying now is the time to take a tight end. I'm going to take Tucker Kraft, one of the breakout stars last year, found his way into the end zone, was excellent in creating yards after the catch. I think that there's potential that the Packers end up throwing more this year. Last year, they ran the ball at the 3rd highest rate. And if they throw the ball more, then Tucker Kraft should absolutely benefit. So we're in this glut of quarterbacks and tight end at the minute, and it is confusing sometimes deciding what to do when there's so many good players and so much value. But we are sitting with 4 running backs in Saquon Barkley, Chase Brown, Tyron Tracy, and Zach Charbonnet. So we could do with 1 more. Rico Dowdle, Jalen Wright, Russell Johnson, all near the top of ADP. At wide receiver, we could take a swing on somebody like Romeo Doubs, Adam Thielen, Marquise Brown, Kyle Williams. I would like to add a rookie wide receiver here. We know we need upside for this wide receiver room to recover from the fact that we didn't take anyone till the 3rd round. So Luther Burden has really struggled to get on the field during training camp, which has been disappointing. But Kyle Williams is lighting things up for the Patriots. So even though the mock draft wizard has the pick predictor at like less than 1%, I'm going to reach down, I'm going to take him. They are not going to like that when they grade this one at the end. But hey, sometimes you got to go against the mock draft wizard to try and find out what the best values are. We can go over the running back position now. We've got 3 picks left, so we're basically saying we're going to have 1 more skill position player and then a defense and a kicker. So Rico Dowdle, the clear handcuff to Chuba Hubbard in Carolina, definitely stands out as somebody who's okay. Roschon Johnson for the Bears could end up having the goal line work, but it sounds like there's an injury at the minute. Jamal Williams in the other day visiting. I like Blake Corum. I think you could see an expanded role this year. Then Marshawn Lloyd had really good camp hype, but again, can't stay healthy. So we'll take Rico Dowdle, the top guy in ADP. Sometimes we don't need to overthink these things. My preference is to tend to lean towards defense above kicker. Kicker is just one of those positions that's so hard to predict. But the Texans defense is excellent, so we'll lock them in. And then at kicker, we've got a choice of Will Lutz, Chase McLaughlin, Kaimi Fairbairn, or Harrison Butker. I think that this one, I'm going to go slightly further down, though, for Evan McPherson. Yes, he had a bit of a crash back down to earth last year for the Bengals. It wasn't quite as good, but he's a really good kicker on a team that is going to score a lot of points, and that's simple enough for me. So Mock Draft Wizard, they've given us an A-, 90 out of 100. I think that's pretty fair. We definitely reached against ADP at some points. We definitely faded some positions and then had to attack them when we did. But if we go over to the full analysis, we're projected to score the 3rd most points. That puts us firmly into the playoffs, and that's what matters. Once we get to the playoffs, then we have to take on a whole different strategy for fantasy football. Now, the Mock Draft Wizard does think that if we drafted CD Lamb at 104 overall and drafted a running back later, your score would have been 28 points higher. I'm not too worried about that. Now, Kyle Williams was the wide receiver rookie that we took with aiming for some upside, and you can see on the Fantasy Pros sleeper consensus rankings at the minute, he is the number 4 wide receiver in that round. We also got massive steals on Kyler Murray in the 10th round, 3 rounds later than he's ranked. Tucker Kraft in the 11th round, 2 rounds later than he's ranked as well. If we go over to the team strength section, you can see that running back, we have a really strong running back room, and we'd hope for that. Like, there's no point doing this strategy if you are not getting a really strong running back room. I don't want to take Saquon Barkley in the 1st round and then be left looking at a running back in round 2 who I'm a little Are they going to be good? Are they really going to give us what we need? But Chase Brown definitely has that upside. Now, we knew that wide receiver we'd rank poorly. We get the 8th best team in this draft by wide receiver, according to Mock Draft Wizard. But our bench depth is ranked the 4th best because we made up for it. So our team was Saquon Barkley, Chase Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Tyron Tracy, Juwan Jennings, Zach Charbonnet, Kyler Murray, Tucker Kraft, Kyle Williams, Rico Dowdle, Houston Texans defense, and Evan McPherson. I think that's a pretty good way to approach the dual running back position. We're saying we need Saquon Barkley and Chase Brown to be legendary this year, and I fully believe they can do it. But we've got enough depth that we could use Tyron Tracy, Zach Charbonnet, Rico Dowdle in the flex if we need it. But our strategy will most likely mean using these wide receivers in the flex because we went with a volume-based approach and we're trying to hit on one of them to make up for not going wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. How you feel about this draft? Let me know in the comments down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and go and check out the mock drafts that we've done already for Zero RB and Hero RB. Let us know how you want to attack 2025.